Hey everybody, and welcome to our session today on comprehension strategies. My name's Paul Nowak. I'm the founder and CEO here at Iris Reading. So if you're joining us yet again, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, and I say channel, but we're streaming on multiple platforms here, from YouTube to LinkedIn to Facebook to Zoom. And so we're kind of doing this experimentally, and we want to see how many people are on the live stream. We want to make sure it's working as well, and that I'm not just talking into the void. If you could do me a big favor and type a yes into the comments or chat area, those of you joining us live, I want to make sure this is actually working properly. And I do see people in the room. I would just want to make sure that audio is coming through on your end. So if you can hear me, just say yes, or I can hear you. And we're going to jump right into things, assuming everything is okay. If I don't hear anything in the chat, I do see some chat messages coming in publicly and directly to me, so it sounds like everything's working. Welcome everyone. I hope your day is going well. And if you got a lot of reading to do, this session is for you, because obviously when we're reading, we want to comprehend what we're reading, right? We want to make sure. We've all had the scenario where you read something and you're like, I have no clue what I just read. Nothing is sinking in, and I have attention issues or comprehension issues. Other things that we do as well is we teach speed reading techniques. We teach techniques on how to improve focus, note-taking techniques. I see some thumbs up coming through. Thank you. By the way, don't forget to like the video. If you want to show us some support on the channel, the best way you could do that is by liking and subscribing to the channel. I've actually got a slide for that, as you can see right here. So if you want to follow me on YouTube, you see right there, youtube.com/@PaulNowak. Or if you're on YouTube right now, you can just subscribe to the channel. We're slowly but surely building it up, and that goes a long way to let other people know about these techniques. You know, these are kind of things, it's essentially learning how to learn. And I think that our education system, to a certain extent, fails us in that regard, in that, here's what I mean. So I've got a daughter who's 7 years old, right? And we all learned to read when we were like 4, 5, 6, 7. She's in first grade, so she's learning the basics, right? The foundational things. Nothing's wrong with the way that teacher. I have a neighbor. She is a kindergarten teacher. She is amazing, and a lot of the teacher that taught my daughter in kindergarten, amazing, and her first grade teacher as well. I'm not so much complaining about that elementary level reading. The problem is later on. When was the last time you learned how to read? Maybe 4, 5, 6 years old, around that time. That's when we learn. But there isn't much follow-up to it, right? It's kind of like, here, learn how to read the basics, and then you get into high school, you start reading more difficult material, obviously. And then you get to college, it gets even harder. You go to graduate school, another level. And we're very rarely taught, well, here's how you memorize things. But we are told, here, you got to memorize this for the test. But we're also taught you got to read all this stuff. But we're not told, well, here's how you read faster and more efficiently. Here's how you should be reading novels. Here's how you should go about reading something like a history textbook. What about reading something in the sciences? So what we're trying to accomplish on our end with regard to Iris Reading is teach people these kind of study skills that they may have not necessarily been taught when they were in high school, grade school, and even in college. So it's just kind of assumed when you get to college that, well, you must know how to read, and you do, but it's about, you know, wherever our skills are right now, we want to upgrade them, right? Just like you upgrade, you know, the operating system on a phone or on a laptop, we want to upgrade our reading skills. Otherwise, things can get away with us. You know, you think about all this stuff going on with artificial intelligence, and we've got to keep up as best as we possibly can to kind of stay ahead of the curve or on the curve or ride that wave. So we're going to be covering today comprehension strategies, and I want you to know we've got some materials for today, and you can download them from the link you see on the screen. I just added it to the chat in YouTube, and also I'm adding it in the chat on LinkedIn. If you go there, that'll take you to a Dropbox folder where you can find the couple of documents that you need for today's session. Don't start reading them yet. By the way, I'm broadcasting from the Miami area, so hello from Miami. Let me know where you're joining us from. I'm curious to know. My hometown is actually Chicago. I know in the last few sessions we've done, we've had people from all over the world, so it's always kind of cool. Let us know in the comments or the chat where exactly you happen to be joining us from. So welcome Angel, Ganesh, Dwayne, Jamie, Sosita. Apologies if I mispronounce anybody's name incorrectly. That is just my inability to pronounce names. And my name's Paul Nowak. I got lucky with a Polish last name that's actually relatively easy to spell. So anyway, let's get on with things. As readers, we want to be efficient in 3 key areas, and that is speed, comprehension, and retention. We want to remember what we've read. I see Angel is joining us from Madrid. Hello from Madrid. I actually did a workshop 4 years ago, not too far away in Barcelona, for a international pharmaceutical company at their conference. So welcome from Madrid, far, far away. I know it's a little later in the day here, but let's bring up something. We're going to focus on comprehension here, but I broke it up between comprehension and retention because retention is what do you remember, and comprehension is what are you understanding at the moment. 2 different things, related obviously, like you can't have retention without comprehension, but sometimes you could have comprehension and terrible retention, right? You might forget things later on. We do have courses related to retention. If you go to our website, irisreading.com, that's where you can find some of those other advanced courses. I'll put the link in the chat so you can get directly there in case you're curious. But we do have courses that go into memorization and things like that. So let's get on to, we're going to focus mainly here on comprehension. So first, make sure you have the handouts for today's session. irisreading.com/comp, as in comprehension, but just shortened. Now, oh, one other thing, people always ask, hey, where can I follow you? Here's all the places you can follow us. Okay, so either pause the video if you want to follow us, and pick your poison, right? Some people love YouTube, some people like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're in all these places, and that's where you can find us. I'd say as far as video content goes, we're going to be posting the majority of it on YouTube, but we'll be posting smaller clips on other places like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and so on. So when it comes to comprehension, really there's a few different areas or components of comprehension. So explaining the information, what are the different perspectives? Can you think about that? Like when you're reading something, can you take into, okay, I'm reading something, it might have just one perspective. Just like when you're reading the news, right? You might be thinking to yourself, okay, what is the opinion or the bias of this publication or this author, right? So we want to consider that. Another thing is your background knowledge. So that plays a part in your comprehension without a doubt. My background, before I started doing this as a full-time career, running a business, I used to work in the trading world. So I was dealing with, stock market, currency markets, commodity markets, like, crude oil, corn, soybeans. I used to work on the trading floor of the Chicago Board of Trade. And I'm still fascinated by markets and things like that. So if you gave me something to read that is related to market news or the stock market, I will read that better than someone that doesn't have that background knowledge, right? So self-knowledge, background knowledge, that always helps. Can you empathize? When you're reading something, can you take someone else's perspective and kind of empathize with that? Other aspects or components of comprehension include, well, how could this be applied practically, right? So when I was studying finance and they talk about, portfolio construction, when you have a class on investments, well, have you actually designed and done that for yourself? Like I manage my own investments. So that's how we apply things practically. And then how has this been interpreted by others? So these are various components of comprehension, but how do we assess it? Now we've all taken, these standardized reading tests. I hate standardized reading tests. I used to hate them so much because I used to run out of time all the time. Don't worry, I'm not going to give you a comprehension test right now. Some of you are like, phew, or I didn't come here to take a test. But when we have a comprehension test, actually they're more properly called standardized reading diagnostic tests. And here's why. Believe it or not, they don't measure comprehension perfectly. They assess it sort of, but not perfectly. So I'll give you an example. I remember there was a student who I was working with it was a group of students. Oh, hello from Pakistan, Tanvir. Hello from Pakistan. And I see someone, Indonesia, Singapore, New York, Chicago, my hometown. Awesome. Des Moines. Anyway, 19 out of 38. This student got a 19 out of 38 on this standardized reading test. And unfortunately, he was told, and his parents were probably told, that he has poor comprehension. Now, I got a chance to look at his actual test. He only answered 20 questions. How do you feel about his comprehension now? I think all of us would agree. This person's comprehension is good. They got 19 out of 20. What happened here? They didn't finish the test. They didn't get to all 38 questions. The last 18, this person didn't even bother answering, okay? Now, if you're taking a standardized reading test and you're not being penalized from, guessing, then you should probably guess, right? Because there's a chance you'll get some good luck and get a few right. But that wouldn't mean your comprehension's better. That just means your score is better. Oh, hello from Bangkok, from Apachit. Apologies if I mispronounced. Hello, my last time I was in Thailand was about 5 years ago when I went on a trip to Singapore. We were doing some classes there for Singapore's Sovereign Wealth Fund, GIC. The Sovereign Wealth Fund is basically a fund when a country has a surplus. They invest that money. So it's like a financial firm that's kind of government controlled that's investing the tax surplus of the country. We don't have that in the US because the US runs on a deficit. But if we had some savings, we'd want to invest it, right? Anyway, greetings from Bangkok. Great. Comprehension, 19 out of 20. That's pretty good. Test score, terrible. 50% is not good. We know what happened here. This person does not have poor comprehension. They got 19 out of 20 right. That's very good. If you gave this person more time, they would probably finish the test, right? Obviously, but they don't give unlimited amounts of time on these reading tests. They give you a certain amount of time, and if you're a slow reader, you're not going to finish it, but your comprehension might be good at that slow rate. We can boost speed, comprehension, but keep that in mind that when somebody has a test and it's 50%, it doesn't necessarily mean their comprehension is bad. We need to dig a little deeper. It's more nuanced than that. Now let's kind of do some reading and figure out how well did you comprehend the material. So I'd like you to refer to the first document that we have for today's session, and that is irisreading.com/comp, and the file name is focusrituals.pdf. Make sure you have that in front of you right now. I'm going to have it on my screen in a moment here. You see it's on the next slide, actually. So hopefully you can just read from my screen. If not, just make sure you've maximized the screen. You know, probably on the bottom right, there's a little button to maximize the screen. Now, if your screen is not large enough to read this text, that's exactly the reason why I want you to download it. So you can zoom in and read it at whatever size the text feels comfortable enough to read. Now, I got a timer over here. When I have you read, it's going to be ticking away. You see it ticking away at the top there? Let me reset it back to 2. You're going to read for 2 minutes. While you're reading, I will turn off my webcam. So goodbye, temporarily. And I want you to read for good comprehension. Actually, I have a sneeze coming on right now. I'm going to pause the microphone for a moment here. Okay, that was a sneeze. Hopefully you didn't hear it. And the good news is we're doing a webinar, so I didn't splatter any saliva on you. There you go. Here's what we're going to do here. I want you to read the way you normally would. Read for good comprehension. It's only going to be 2 minutes of reading. And at the end of this 2 minutes, we'll kind of do a self-assessment of how was my comprehension. But just read normally, okay? Not too fast, not too slow. And I'll stop you in 2 minutes. And I'll also turn off my microphone so you don't hear any background noise like sneezing on my end. So just read the way you normally would. Go ahead and begin. All right, that was 2 minutes of reading. And let's think about what our comprehension was like. When I say that, I mean, I want you to assess your comprehension or estimate your comprehension. And when I say that, this is very subjective. I mean, if you had to rate yourself on a scale of 0 to 100% on the material you were just reading, what was your comprehension like? If you felt like your comprehension was pretty good, you might say 80%. If you felt like it was so-so, you might say 70%. If you felt like it was terrible, you might say 60 or 50. If you got distracted, that happens, right? Nobody has perfect focus. By the way, we'll talk about improving your focus in a few moments here. So 0 to 100%. You can put it in the chat. If you felt like your comprehension was good, 80%, maybe you're going to be very precise and you'll be like, 73.2%. Write down a number or enter it in the chat. We'll do this again later on, but this is just kind of a self-assessment. And here's why you would want to do this. Let's say I have you read something else right now. I could ask you a very quick question after you're done reading. How was your comprehension this time? Was it better? Was it worse? So we could basically take the previous number. Let's say your number was 70%. And if your comprehension was better this time, you're going to put a higher number, right? If your comprehension was worse, you'll put a lower number. So this is just kind of a self-assessment, okay? It's very subjective, but I want you to know comprehension is just like that. It's very hard to measure comprehension perfectly or objectively. Your reading speed, that's a different matter. You can measure reading speed very objectively. Read for 1 minute, count every single word you read during the minute, and that is a words per minute speed. But comprehension, that's harder to assess. Yeah, standardized reading tests do it, but remember what we said over here? Standardized reading tests don't always get it perfectly assessed. Sometimes there's more nuance to it. So you have an idea. There are other ways to assess your comprehension, by the way. We know we can create standardized reading tests, but one question I've gotten before is, people tell me I'm reading something and I want to know if I understand it, but I don't have a way to assess it. Like especially if you're out of school and you don't have teachers giving you these standardized reading tests or professors testing your knowledge. So how can we do it? Well, here's some ways you can do it. First off, we can go to, let's say you're studying, let's see here. Let's say you're reading about vitamin D. All right, you want to do a deep dive and you're going to read the Wikipedia article. We assume this might be a good source, maybe not perfect, but a good source. It's not a textbook on textbook section or chapter on this, but we can read through this material, right? And learn about vitamin D and all the information related to it. Well, ultimately, let's say you read this whole Wikipedia article, right? And as you can see, it's somewhat lengthy. I mean, it's not like a 50-page textbook chapter, but it's just a Wikipedia article about vitamin D. Now we're down to the end. This is the end, of course, where we have references, right? So what can we do? I want to introduce a way to generate a reading test, but using a program that a lot of you may have heard of, and that is ChatGPT. So ChatGPT can actually help us create comprehension tests or standardized reading tests. So we can say something like that, and actually this is my first time trying it with this particular article, but I'll say, look, I'm going to take the link, copy it, okay? I'm going to go into ChatGPT and I'm going to say, create a standardized reading test. Let's do 10 questions just for the sake of it. With 10 questions. Let's make it more standardized reading test that is multiple choice. That is multiple choice with 10 questions and 5 answer choices each based on this article. And I'm just going to paste the Wikipedia article in there and boom, let's see what happens here. All right. So it's rewriting the article, as you can see, and it's just going to keep on going. So what it's doing, actually, I see what it's doing, and I could be more clear with my prompts, but it says read the following. It's creating a standardized reading test. So it's taking this entire text right here, And you ever take one of those standardized reading tests that, you know, you have a passage to read and then questions to answer, right? It's taking this whole thing and then rewriting it into a shorter form. So here we have 1 paragraph, 2 paragraphs. Okay, we have a little bit of information, and then we got some questions related to right here. And still writing the questions. I asked for 10, but you can see how it's basically building a standardized reading test for us. What I think is cool about this is I know that if you've heard of ChatGPT, you've probably heard of the controversy of what about college students? They're going to be, you know, it's going to make it easier for them to they can just write their own papers, right? And yeah, but teachers can also create their own tests, right? So it kind of saves multiple people multiple time. There's a lot of controversies with this actually, and sometimes let's see here. It looks like it's bugging out here. It didn't finish that last one. Let's see. I'm going to say create a 5-question test or 7-question test. I don't know why I put a question mark there. Apologies. Certainly, here's a shortened version of the standardized reading test with 7 questions based on the article Vitamin D from Wikipedia. That's nice, okay? So I guess I don't know why it's giving an intro like that, but it is. And then we'll get our 7 questions, hopefully. And then the other cool thing about this is you can ask it at the end, well, what are the answer choices, right? Like what are the correct answers? And it'll give you, of course, an answer key. Now, why would we be doing this? The idea is, okay, I am no longer a student, but I'm trying to read and learn about vitamin D. How do we test our knowledge? Well, we need a test or a quiz. So we're asking the program to basically create a quiz on this right here. There's the 7th question it's writing. You got to give it a moment. I mean, I know it would take, you know, a teacher or a professor a little longer to do this. Show me the answers to each question, because I need an answer key, right? Or I might do, so what you would do is you read this material, you do your test, you see how you did, and you can get a sense of what your comprehension was like. Certainly, here are the answers to each question. I don't know about you, but I think this is kind of cool. And it's giving me the answer choices to every single one, and that way I can see, did I get them right? And kind of assess my knowledge of the information. Let us know in the comments if you found any other ways of using ChatGPT for improving your reading abilities or other scenarios. I find it, I'm finding various use cases for it constantly. And also, we will be posting more content related to this as we go along. Actually, we might do a whole live stream on it, but I just wanted to bring that up as one way to assess your comprehension. Get ChatGPT to create a test for you based on the material. So let's talk about comprehension tips, because ultimately we want to improve comprehension, not just test how bad our comprehension might be. Sometimes it's really bad. So we want to improve it. How do we improve it? First, we got to improve our focus. We all know this is kind of the initial thing that is necessary. If you don't have focus and attention, you're not going to comprehend, you're not going to remember. So this is kind of like the starting point where we need to be. So easiest way to improve your focus is to use your hand as a guide. When I say that, when you're reading printed material, you're using your hand like this, or your finger, or a pen as a guide. Here's a pen over here I got. Basically, you're creating motion on the page, and it turns out your eyes are naturally attracted to motion. Your eyes will follow as you go along the page when you do this. And of course, this is, I keep saying the page because it's more effective on the page. It's a little harder to do when you're on the screen for obvious reasons, right? If I'm on a phone, I can be going like this on my phone, right? Or if you're on the screen, nobody wants to be dragging their finger on the screen. I guess you could use a mouse, right? But I'm using a laptop, so using a mouse pad and using my mouse pointer smoothly is not as easy. So as far as reading on the screen goes, there are other approaches you can take for that. And some of these things can be things like there's a program. Actually, let me queue up the program here and I'll find it for you. Let's just going to pull up a sample article that we're going to read, and we're going to read through it just really quickly using this program that I have here. And if you haven't already taken our speed reading workshop, this was mentioned in there, but for those of you that haven't taken it, I'm just going to bring it up again. And here it is. So this is a free speed reading tool called Accelerator. What you do is you take material you want to read and you copy and paste it into the text box here, okay? So I've got it copy and pasted from here. So we have this article, financial experts just recommend waiting until chaos is law of the land. Let's say I want to read through this material, and remember earlier I said, hey, it's a good idea to use your hand or pen as a guide to pace yourself. This program, and it's free, will pace you on its own. So it's a free speed reading tool that we created. And let me show you how it works. So we're going to read this article. Financial experts just recommend waiting until chaos is law of the land. Let's try it out. Focus your attention in the middle of the screen here. When I hit the read button, it's going to be blinking the words at whatever speed you set in the program. And I've got it set right now to 250 words a minute, which is around average, maybe slightly above average in terms of speed. Let's see if you can keep up at that rate. Here we go. All right, so you get the idea. It's blinking words on the screen. You may have noticed in the settings, it's blinking 3 words at a time. Did you notice that when you were reading? And the settings, you can change your speed to whatever you want, your chunk size, the amount of words. You want to read multiple words at a time because that makes you more efficient and you're capable of it. You can even bump up your speed, and there's some keyboard shortcuts down here you can explore on your own, but this is a free speed reading tool that we created at Iris Reading. And I'm just going to put the link to it in the chat so everybody has it. Accelerator.com, that's where you can find that particular tool. And we can obviously tweak the settings. We can make it go faster if we want. I just wanted to bring this up as basically something that can easily improve your ability to pace yourself when you're reading on the screen. So most people, when they're reading, they tend to go, at a certain speed, and when they're reading, they don't have any kind of pacing. You can create some pacing with this kind of a program. So it's free. We are working on turning it into an iPhone, Android app as well, but check it out on your own when you have a chance. Next thing I want to cover, how do we deal with diagrams? So most people, what they're doing is, they're reading some text and it refers to some diagram. Maybe the diagram's on the next page, and they finish reading the paragraph. Now they look at the diagram and they're trying to figure out what in the world is going on here. Now this is not incredibly complex. You might get something even more complex than this. So how do we approach it? What you do is the moment it says, like, I don't know, you're reading this and you've got some diagram here or a table, figure, whatever. The moment it says refer to figure 2.4, stop reading and refer to figure 2.4 for like a first impression, okay? Next, you leave your finger where you stopped, or you put a mark where you stopped, and then you read the next sentence. And the next sentence might read, figure 2.4 shows a relationship between blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Stop reading and check. See if you can verify that. Okay, that makes sense. I'll read the next sentence now. Additionally, figure 2.4 shows blah, 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 blah. I'll stop reading again, and I'm going to verify. Can I visually verify what they just told me? So it's like read, verify, read, verify. It's kind of a choppy way of reading, but it comes in handy when you're dealing with diagrams. So think of it like if you were in class and you had a professor up front in the whiteboard where they were pointing to something, and they would say like, hey, look over here. And you would look, and they would say, if you notice, this goes like this, and this relationship shows that. They would explain to you the diagram, and they'd be pointing at certain points, and you'd be visually seeing that. The same thing goes with reading. The problem is when people are reading, they might have a whole paragraph over here that talks about some table or diagram that's on the next page or the previous page. So most people are just reading and getting bombarded by all that text, And then when they look at the diagram, they're like, I have no clue what's going on here. I got to reread. But if you read a sentence, verify, read a sentence, verify, you keep doing this until they stop talking about the diagram, chart, or table, or whatever it happens to be. So that's how we would approach tables, diagrams, charts. Now, as far as improving focus goes, how long can you focus on a task before you like hit a wall? Let me know in the comments, what would your focus be at its maximum? Like if you had to estimate it. I mean, let's say you got to do a ton of study and you got to study for hours and you can't study for 5 hours straight, but you got to do 5 hours of studying. How long before you got to take a break? Now, for some people that might be 30 minutes. For other people, it might be 15. For some people, they have trouble holding their attention for 10 minutes or more. Tell me in the chat or in the comments below. I'm curious. And there is actually some research into this question of how long before someone doing a task starts losing their focus dramatically. And the answer tends to be around 25 minutes. And what you can do is alternate between 25 minutes of focus and 5 minutes of a break. This is sometimes referred to as the Pomodoro technique in productivity circles. Pomodoro is the Italian word for tomato. And this was actually coined by an Italian student who noticed he had a kitchen timer that was shaped like a tomato, you know, one that you turn and it beeps after a certain amount of time. He found that if he set the timer to 25 minutes, his little tomato timer, he found that, oh, I could study more effectively if I interchange between 25 minutes of focus and 5 minutes of a break. And there is a little bit of research to back that this is effective, that breaks do help us. And around 25 minutes is where people, their focus kind of falls off a cliff, okay? So it's something you need to know if you're going to be reading for long periods of time. Not just reading, I mean, it applies even to just doing other types of work. What if you've got I don't know, you had a vacation and you're going back and you're trying to catch up with your emails and it's going to take you, I don't know, an hour because you got to respond to a bunch of people. Don't do an hour straight of work. Try to do 25 minutes and take a little break. You could use the timer on your phone. There's a lot of Pomodoro timers also just in the App Store that you can find. If you just search for Pomodoro timer, you'll find a bunch. Actually, there's a Pomodoro timer I like using, and it's called Nucleus. And I want to show you how it works. If you go to irisreading.com, I'll put this as a tool as well, irisreading.com /Pomodoro timer. I want to make sure I got the right spelling here, and I'm going to put it in the chat. By the way, this just forwards over to a much longer link into the Chrome Web Store. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to exit from the slides here, and I'm just going to go into Google Chrome. We are going to pull up Nucleus. I'm going to add it to Chrome over here. And you see when I add an extension, it adds it up here. Now, here's the thing. When I exit this out, this is going to disappear temporarily, the green button, but it's in here. So what you got to do is you got to pin it. You see this pin over here? I got to make that blue, and it pins it to the top. Okay, so here's the program and what you can do with it. You click on it. You see you got break time, focus time. The nice thing about this program compared to other Pomodoro timers is it will allow you to modify the time to whatever you want. Not everyone's going to fall into the category of 25 minutes. I know some of you might feel like, you know what, there's no way in the world I'll be able to do that. Maybe I could do 12. Okay, well, maybe you do 12 minutes here and 3 minutes on this side to make it a rounded up 15. Or maybe you go the traditional route of, okay, I'm going to do 5 minutes and I'm going to do the traditional 25 minutes. So you start your timer. When it's done, it'll give you a little ding. It'll automatically start the break timer. At that point, you get up from your seat maybe, or you do something else. Maybe you check your phone for any messages that may have come through. Here's the other thing you can do. There is a website blocker, and this I find particularly handy. Add whatever websites here that you want to avoid going to. Because sometimes it's so easy to just open a tab and be like, I'm going to go into YouTube, or let me check Reddit, or I mean, add whatever websites you want in here. And when you have it enabled, and when you try to go to something like Reddit, or actually, let me enable, I got to enable it by clicking right here. It's disabled, it's enabled now. Okay, so if I try to go to Reddit now, watch what it does. You see that? It says here, you should be focusing. Studies show that humans now have a shorter attention span than goldfish. Okay, what if I try to go to YouTube? Same thing happens. I like how it gives you a little bit of a guilt trip, right? It's like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. Okay, so it'll interchange it all the time. So it's kind of, there's a funny one here. I'm judging you. What else here? There's one, I like this one. Remember when you were working on that thing just now? And that happens all the time. You get distracted, you go to another website, and you can end up being on that site for 20, 30 minutes. We want to focus. So this comes embedded with a website blocker, something I think you can make use of. Obviously, we can get around it. I could just decide, I'm going to remove this program by removing it from Chrome. Yeah, you could do that, but it's just a way to keep ourselves in check because it's so easy to lose focus. Now, so check that out when you have a chance. Another technique I want to cover, the read and recall method, is a way to improve your concentration while you're reading, because here's what it helps against. When you're reading, you know how your brain sometimes wanders off? Well, when your brain wanders off, eventually you catch yourself and you're like, I'm not getting any of this, I gotta go back. Well, how far back do I have to go? I don't know. Do I have to go back one paragraph or like several pages? So it's not immediately clear. I gotta figure it out, and that takes up time to figure out, wait, where was I last actually understanding the material? So with the read and recall method, what you do is you determine ahead of time when you're gonna take notes. So for example, in this material you see here, you might determine every time I finish a section, I'm going to take notes. Take notes here. When I get to the next page, I'm going to take notes here. I'm going to take notes here, and so on and so forth. Why would we do this? Well, when we take notes, we're kind of making ourselves accountable. We're asking ourselves, what in the world did I just read? Write it down. Now, when I start reading again, and eventually my mind wanders off, if that happens, if I start zoning out, I don't know immediately that I'm zoning out. I might keep on reading, quote unquote, but I'm progressing through the text, nothing is sinking in, and eventually I'll stop myself. Eventually I'll be like, okay, hold on. I gotta go back. None of this is sinking in. I was thinking of other things. How far back do I have to go? It's easy, just up to here, right? Because I know I took a little break here to take notes. So if I started wandering off here, I just go back to here. And this actually helps with comprehension, with focus, and retention. So this read and recall method, it's just taking notes at predetermined times, even if nothing is notable. It's just kind of checking your mind like, hey, are you still there? You finish a section, are you still there? Finish a section, and you keep doing this. So note taking does help us with recall, helps us with focus, and we have a whole course that goes into it, but just to kind of scratch the surface, how you take notes does matter. We've taken outlines. This is very linear, but there are non-linear ways to take notes. Mind maps are a great example of this, where you can organize things in a non-linear way. And there's a reason why they call them mind maps. It has to do with the way that your mind works. We associate one thing to another. That's how we learn. So with a mind map, this is a mind map on how to create a mind map. You have associations, right? You have this thing associated to these details up here, this associated with that. So there's a lot of good mind mapping programs out there. One that I like using is XMind. Actually, I'll show you what it looks like here. If you go to xmind.net, and I'll put that link in the chat as well, https xmind.net. This is a useful program for mind mapping. Check that out when you have a chance. It's they've got a free version. Here's what it looks like when I open it up. It gives you a blank mind map, and you could always change the style. If you want to have a different style of the mind map, you can do that right here, right? Like maybe you want it to look like this or like that. So you pick your style, and you have your topic in the middle. Maybe it's chapter 5 from this book I'm reading. And when you have your details, you add them by just hitting the tab key, or what you can do is you can just click up here to the topic and click like that. But I like using the keyboard shortcut, so like enter or tab will add another one. Tab, you can just move around like this, add your details, add your other details. A lot of other formatting things you could do here, adding links, adding attachments, adding images, various things you can do. But I also like to use mind maps when I am writing or when I'm organizing a presentation. I have my topic in the middle, and a lot of times I don't know how I'm going to start. So I do a brainstorm. So I use mind maps for brainstorming where I'm like, okay, I want to talk about this, I want to talk about this and this. I got to talk about this. Oh, there's a little thing I got to add. I don't know when, but I'm going to add it at some point. So I add all the information, big and small, all over the place. Once I have enough things floating around, then I could say, all right, let's start with this. And the next thing I'm going to cover is that. And oh, this thing over here, this is related to that. So let me drag that there. So you see, we can start with what appears to be a mess, and little by little, we start organizing it into something that looks a little more structured, right? And then if you're looking for order, because this might not appear to be in an order, this is the first topic. So this might be your introduction. Think of it like a clock, right? This would be like 1 o'clock, first thing, second topic, and so on. You can add your details here. Sometimes your details have details. Unfortunately, sometimes your details of details have their own details. If you start getting something very, very complex like this, and it keeps going on and on and on, well, you could always zoom out, as you can see here, zoom in, zoom out, and you could print it to one page. There's a lot of options here. I don't want to dwell too much because you can play around with it for yourself. There's other topics I want to get into, but I just wanted you to be aware of different note-taking tool because that helps with our comprehension too. MindMeister is another great tool. If you're looking for a web-based one, this one I was showing you here is a desktop program, right? But if you go to MindMeister, mindmeister.com, that's a kind of like, I mean, it operates in the cloud. So you see here, we can add a mind map by just clicking new mind map. And or what you can do, they give you, here's what a new mind map looks like. They kind of give you the first couple, but you can also do it based off of a template if you want. You see the templates. They've got a whole bunch of templates from org charts to lists to product launch, company org charts, roadmaps, risk management, SWOT analysis. You see there's lots and lots of potential mind maps, but again, that's just another tool you can use. And depending on if you want to use something that's a desktop download or if you want something that's in the cloud, XMind and MindMeister are both very, very solid tools if you are interested in mind maps. So excuse me at the moment because I'm just typing the links in the chat here. I want to make sure everyone's got links to those for future reference. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is something called Feynman's notes. So if you're familiar with Richard Feynman or not, he was this famous physicist and a great science educator, and he had his students write notes in a certain way. And it's come to be known as Feynman's notes. And basically what you do is step 1 is you write your subject at the top. Step 2 is you explain it in your own words, okay, writing it out. Step 3 is you review your content to see if you made any mistakes, because you might write it out in your own words, but you could be wrong. So you got to double check and make sure it's correct. And then step 4, if you wrote anything technical, go back and rewrite in simpler terms. So think of it like, what if I was explaining this to a 5-year-old? Can I explain it in simple terms? And if you can do that, that actually greatly impacts your ability to understand the information. So actually, it reminds me of when I say explain it to a 5-year-old, there's a great subreddit. If you're familiar with Reddit, there's all these communities, but there's a really cool subreddit called Explain Like I'm 5. And this is so cool because anytime you're having trouble understanding something, you can go here and search for it, and you'll find really cool explanations of things in a very, very simple to understand way. So here's the link, and I'll post this. Let me post it in the chat here. It's just reddit.com/r/explain like I am 5. Okay, so here's actually an example. This is a Reddit post. I don't know if you can see this on your screen, but it says, why does the human mind ignore the second the? Now, I don't know if you read that properly, because if we slow down and see, why does the human mind, wait a minute, there's 2 thes there. Did you skip over it like I did? Why does the human mind ignore the second the? There's actually an explain like I'm 5 reason for this, and it's reading related. Let's take a look down here. The cool thing about Reddit is usually the best comments are upvoted to the top. So this is the best comment. It says here, for those of you requiring the extra the in my comment, you'll find it up here, the. So it says here, in addition to what others have said, the human brain, when reading, Actually, let me see if I could zoom in on this through the slide here. There we go. Okay, so you can see it more clearly for those of you maybe on smaller screens. So it says here, in addition to what others have said, the human brain, when reading, doesn't actually see every word, unless you're not fluent in a particular language. Your eyes actually take in multiple words at a time, and they parse the sentence based on the words you've taken in. This also means that unless a particular particle is deadly important to the sentence, your brain ignores it. Interesting. It also partially explains why sometimes you go back over a sentence if it doesn't parse correctly. An extra "the" doesn't change the meaning of a sentence, so you continue as if you understood. That's an interesting explanation for that, and it's one of the better ones. So if you go to Reddit and you're looking for things like, I don't know, let's say you're studying physics and you're studying one of Einstein's theories of relativity, or both of them, and you're trying, let me go to reddit.com/explain like I'm 5. What I can do here is I can search at the top. See right here at the top, search for whatever you're trying to explain. So you might be studying something very, very difficult and you want another explanation of it besides your professors. Some people can explain things more easily in simpler terms. So I might search for Einstein's theory or theories of relativity. And I'm going to get a whole bunch of options here. And usually the one that has like more than like 20 comments, I mean, you could look through all these, explain like I'm 5, Einstein's theories of relativity. And you'll find, I mean, there's a bunch of them here, but you get the idea. This is just a source or a resource for getting things explained in a more useful manner, I think. Okay, let's say you got some notes and we got to review them at some point, right? When should you review your notes? Think about how fast you forget something. It can be very fast. Like, you ever forget someone's name like instantly? Like, maybe you forgot my name. My name is Paul, by the way, Paul Nowak. If you forgot my name, no big deal. People forget names. It happens. Happens to me, happens to everyone. You forget names very fast, or things very fast. By the way, I should mention, with names, sometimes you forget a name because you didn't pay attention, right? That happens. So again, attention is key, number 1, step 1. But let's say you got the name or the information, you read a chapter, you're going to forget that information very fast unless you review. So you review maybe your notes, and then you're still going to forget, but at a slower pace. And if you review again, the pace of forgetting slows down. Every time you review, you forget more slowly until eventually you review enough times that you got it. Now, we can take a mathematical approach to improve your memory and based on when you should review your information. So we're going to use this Fibonacci sequence. Let me explain how you would do this, and you would do this for situations where you need to know something inside out. Maybe you got a test coming up. So notice the Fibonacci sequence. The way it works, if you're not already familiar, every number, the way you get it is by adding the previous 2 numbers. So the reason we have a 2 here is because 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. 2 plus 3 is 5. 3 plus 5 is 8, and so on and so forth. You see the pattern. What I want you to notice in the pattern is the gaps between the numbers. Initially, the gaps are very small, right? Tiny gap of 1, tiny gap of 1, a tiny gap of 2, tiny gap of 3. But eventually they're 5, a gap of 5, a gap of 8, a gap of 13. Notice how the gaps are all of a sudden getting exponentially wider. So the reason this is useful is because when it comes to memory and trying to remember things, you want your repetitions initially to be very quick. And as you space things out, you could review at wider intervals. So you can think of this as a Fibonacci review periods. When I say that, I mean over a timeline where you have Fibonacci on the top, Fibonacci numbers on the top, and a when to review, like a timeline on the bottom. Let's say 12 noon is when you finished reading something. Or maybe you finished a class and you got some notes from the lecture. When should you review? Now, let's say, and this is only if you got to remember it really well, let's say you got a test coming up tomorrow or after tomorrow. 1 hour later, you should review your notes. Why? Because if you don't, you're going to forget information very quickly. So you got to review quickly. So it could be immediately after class or within 1 hour. And then when should you review again? Well, let's try 2 hours later at 3 p.m., 3 hours later at 6 p.m., 5 hours later at 11 p.m., and then first thing in the morning 7 a.m. Now, you don't have to follow these precisely, but the idea is that you're spacing things wider and wider over a long period of time and interrupting the forgetting curve. Now, this is happening on an hourly basis. You could also do this on a daily basis. Like if you were reading and you don't have a test coming up tomorrow, but maybe it's in a few weeks, but you just want to remember this information well, you might say, all right, I'm going to review my notes 1 day later, 2 days later, 3 days later, and so on. Or you could even do monthly. I do that when I'm reading books that are just of, I'm not in school anymore, so I'm not going to have tests on this book that I read. So I'll read the book, I'll have my notes. I typically have a mind map for every book that I've read. And guess what? 1 month later, I'm going to review that mind map. It takes me like 5 minutes or 10 minutes max. And then I'm just kind of reflecting on the information. And then 2 months later, I'll review it again. 3 months later again. I keep those reminders in a special calendar on Google Calendar. And that's just for me to remember the information long term. So one other way you can improve your comprehension. If you want to improve comprehension, change up your speed. You shouldn't always go the same speed. Sometimes you got to slow it down, speed up, just like if you're driving, right? You're making a turn like this, you better slow it down. So when should you slow down? A good rule of thumb is first sentence of a paragraph, okay? By the way, you can download this if you want. It's india.pdf from this link over here. If you slow down on the first sentence of each paragraph, you're going to get all the main ideas and you're going to very easily comprehend the material. You slow down, speed up, slow down, speed up. That's a good way to get into a nice reading rhythm. So try this out next time you're reading, and it doesn't have to be on a small, short article like this. It could be on a longer 20, 30, or 40-page chapter. Slow down here, speed up there. When I get to a new paragraph, I slow down here, speed up here, and so on and so forth. So this is how we can improve our comprehension, because changing your speed forces you to pay attention. I'll give you an example. You ever have a teacher that spoke in a monotone voice? Like imagine you came to this class and I'm like, hello everybody, my name is Paul Nowak and today we're going to be studying strategies to improve your comprehension. The first thing we're going to go. If I spoke like that, it would be easy to tune out, right? It would be hard to pay attention because the speed is the same. The volume is not fluctuating. The volume of a voice that's monotone stays the same. When you don't have those changes or fluctuations, it's easy to lose attention. But if you do have changes in speed, like when you're reading, an easy way to lose focus is going exactly the same speed of every line. Your brain will get bored. So it's good to change up your speed. And this is just a rule of thumb. Slow down on the first sentence of a paragraph. Now, one other thing you should always be doing when you're reading is to inspect before you read. This is a very important speed reading strategy if you want to get better comprehension. Always inspect before you read. That just means get the gist of something. So if you were reading a article like this, you read the first sentence of each paragraph. Okay, now read the whole thing. If you read the first sentences first, you get all the main ideas. Now your comprehension is going to be way better, right? So if you're reading a chapter, a report, or a journal article, not something like this, you read the intro, headings and subheadings, bold-faced words. This is very practical advice. Most people don't do it. You're looking through your whole chapter and just reading parts of it, maybe even the questions at the end. And then you're reading the whole thing. So let's try this out. Let's do a little experiment, another exercise. I want you to refer to flow.pdf. And when I say flow, I don't mean the lady from Progressive. You ever see those commercials? The insurance company, Progressive, they have that girl named Flo. She dresses all in white and she's like obsessed with car insurance apparently. Anyway, we're going to refer to flow.pdf. It's a similar article related to productivity and focus. You can find that article here, irisreading.com/cop. So here it is. And we're going to inspect it together. I mean, it's a very short 2-page article. So we have here, okay, going with the flow. And we have a little quote at the beginning from Lao Tzu. Life is a series of natural, spontaneous changes. Don't resist them. That only creates sorrow. Let reality be reality. Let things flow naturally in whatever way they like. Okay, fair enough. Number 1, realize that you can't control everything. Number 2, become aware. Number 3, breathe. Number 4, get perspective. Number 5, practice. Number 6, laugh. Number 7, realize that you can't control others. Okay, and you see at the bottom it says this passage is selected from the book Focus, a Simplicity Manifesto in the Age of Distraction. Okay, we're going to read this now. So what I want you to do is I'm going to turn off my webcam. This is going to be one of our final exercises here. And I want you to read for another 2 minutes, but you're not going to read what you already read. So skip the quote, we already read that. So start from here. And I'll give you 2 minutes to read. And at the end of the 2 minutes, I want you to kind of self-assess your comprehension. Was your comprehension better because you read all of this first? And it should be, because you kind of know generally what you're getting yourself into. That's always a good way to start. So let's just read for 2 minutes. And again, start from here. You don't necessarily have to get through the whole thing. Some of you might, some of you might get through most of it. Go at whatever speed feels comfortable, but focus on comprehension and start from here, okay? All right, ready, set, and go. All right, there goes 2 minutes. And I want you to write down, just based on what you read, you only read 2 minutes of this, 0 to 100%, like we did before. How was your comprehension? Was it better than last time? Was it worse? Was it about the same? Put a number there. You could let us know in the chat or in the comments below what was your comprehension this time around on the second article. And did you make an improvement in comprehension? And the whole point of the strategy was to see how does an inspection, when you inspect something, right? We read this first. Does it help with comprehension? And I just wanted to show you that it can, it should. If you made an improvement, awesome. That's why I have this slide here, the success baby. Awesome. This kid's got like sand on his lip, apparently. Anyway, the whole point of inspecting, get the gist of it first. Or think of it this way. What do you do before you play a sport? What do you do before you work out? You warm up, right? You stretch out. This is like the reading equivalent of warming up and stretching out. And the worst way to approach nonfiction material is to just start on page 1 and then read page 2 and then read page 3. That's a very linear way to read. It's a better idea to kind of, let me see what I'm getting myself into. Headings, subheadings, boldface words, look at some pictures and diagrams, and then I get to the end, read my conclusion. Now I'm ready. Now I've stretched out. I'm warmed up. Let me knock this out. So that's the point, and that will get you better comprehension. By the way, the name of our organization, IRIS, there's a reason we're named IRIS, and it's actually an acronym for how you would approach reading material with this IRIS method. You inspect first, you read next. When you're done reading, here's the thing. Most people, when they're done reading, they're like, okay, I'm done, you know, that's it. No, you're done reading. I mean, don't throw your book. When you're done reading, you inquire about what you just read. You ask questions. So questions could be things like, what are the biggest takeaways from what I read? What are most important points? What do I got to memorize, if anything? That leads to the storage step. That's where you would try to memorize something. Again, you can go to our website to take one of our advanced courses on memory. We go over multiple strategies for memorization. By the way, the articles we were reading earlier, they're extracted from this book, Focus, A Simplicity Manifesto in the Age of Distraction. The author, Leo Babauta, has given us permission to freely distribute the PDF of that book. So if you want me to send it to you, shoot me an email. It's just paul@irisreading.com, and I'll make sure that I get that PDF over to you. It's a quick read, about 100 pages, a great book on practical advice to improve your focus. And if you want to take one of those advanced courses that I've been talking about, we have them on speed reading. We have a speed reading mastery course. We have a comprehension course. We have courses to improve memory, note taking, and even personal productivity. So if you're just trying to get more out of your day, all these courses are helpful. For those of you joining us on the live stream, and for those of you sticking around to the end here, I've got a special code for you, and it's just my name, Paul, and that will give you an extra 30% off whatever discounts may already be on the site. And again, you can find those courses here, irisreading.com/courses, or just go to irisreading.com, find that courses page, and you can sign up and get a discount. I understand not everyone's in a position to take a longer course, and that's fine. The best way you could support us is by subscribing on YouTube. So if you're already on here, if you could do us a big favor by just liking the video or subscribing. If you want additional content, we will be posting on a weekly basis. Also, this is to prove to our marketing team that this is worth the time. There are questions from my marketing team, then we're trying to figure it out. Does it make sense? I personally love teaching these kind of workshops, whether it's in person or on the web, a live stream like this. So feel free to interact with us in the comments, in the chat. If we do see enough interaction, we'll keep on doing this. And I'll be back here every single week doing more of this. But thank you so much for attending. I've got my contact info. Also, for those of you, if you're at a company or a school and you want to invite us to do something on campus or on site at your company, we've done this for employees of NASA, the Army, the Navy, Google, LinkedIn, lots of different financial organizations. So if you want to invite us to your company or school, shoot me an email and we'll try to organize something there, or even as in a webinar format. We did something a few weeks ago for Fidelity Investments in their Toronto office, but we did it through a Zoom session. So feel free to reach out by email. Also, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, by all means, feel free to do so. Just shoot me a message for a connection request and let me know that you attended one of these sessions. Also, if you want to follow on Instagram, that's where you could find that, Paul G. Nowak. Thank you all so much for attending. I hope you found this helpful. And if you like what we're doing at IRIS, tell your friends about us. If you don't like what we're doing, tell your enemies about us. But thank you so much for coming and have a great rest of the week. Take care.